Have you ever felt that the profound exhaustion that settled in your body after a draining relationship was a sign of weakness, when in reality, it was your soul preparing the ground for the biggest turning point in your life? The toxic experience with a narcissist has the capacity to drain our vitality, creating the false impression that our feminine essence and our joy have been extinguished forever. However, Carl Jung's analytical psychology teaches us that these moments of deep withdrawal are, in fact, the precursors to an extraordinary and absolutely inevitable psychic rebirth. The feminine energy, which is by nature receptive, fluid, and creative, has not disappeared. It has merely retreated to the depths of your being to protect itself from the influence of an emotionally immature person. This descent into one's own inner silence is the strategic movement of a silent force that is gathering all its internal resources to emerge in an even more powerful, conscious, and unwavering way. The pattern of control established during your cohabitation demanded that you always be on high alert, operating at a survival frequency that undermined your ability to simply be and exist in peace. Now that the separation has begun, your psychic system is undergoing a true cleansing operation, removing the residue of emotional manipulation to restore your original harmony. The woman who crosses this desert does not return the same. She returns refined, possessing a much clearer understanding of the workings of human shadows and the non-negotiable importance of her own light. The apparent emptiness you feel today is merely the space being opened for a new version of yourself to inhabit your body with complete sovereignty and self-respect. Your sensitivity, which was once used against you, transforms into a sophisticated radar that will never again allow disrespectful behavior into your sacred territory. The nature of feminine energy is similar to that of water. It flows around obstacles, adapts to containers, but carries within itself the power capable of sculpting mountains when it gains speed and direction. The period of pain and confusion served as a narrow riverbed that only increased the pressure and clarity of its vital flow, directing it towards an ocean of possibilities. Jung saw the human journey as a path towards individuation, and this closing of a cycle is the most urgent call your soul has ever received to become its own compass. You realize that strength does not reside in shouting or trying to change the other, but in the ability to elegantly withdraw from tables where respect is no longer served. The true power of the feminine lies in this gentle firmness, a posture that deconstructs the manipulation of others simply by refusing to participate in the chaos that the other desperately tries to create. The narcissist, operating through a profound disconnection from himself, believed he could continuously draw upon her light without ever having to deal with the consequences of this boundary invasion. He underestimated the regenerative capacity that resides in the essence of a woman who decides to turn her love and care entirely toward her own healing and expansion. When feminine energy is redirected toward building one's own being, it works daily miracles, healing what has been wounded and strengthening the roots that sustain her new reality. Her presence, previously diluted in an attempt to save the relationship, now condenses into a dense core of self-worth, emitting a frequency that naturally repels what is false. The awakening of this silent force is the exact moment when the former victim of an unjust dynamic rises as the conscious and untouchable architect of her own destiny. The reconstruction of your inner world begins with the radical acceptance that your sweetness and empathy are valuable gifts that need rigorous guardians to continue existing. You stop giving your gold to those who only have lead to offer, applying Jungian alchemy to transform the impact of disappointment into the most solid foundation you have ever had. The woman who emerges after this transition carries a profound gaze that is not deceived by superficial performances, for she has already known the backstage of illusion and has chosen authenticity. The maturity brought about by this journey transforms your feminine energy into an unwavering beacon, guiding you safely through the mists of life and illuminating the path to your happiness. Your capacity to love has not been lost. It has been refined, elevated, and above all, directed primarily towards the most important person on your journey, yourself. Jungian psychology reveals that we often project our most luminous qualities and hidden power onto others, handing them the crown that belongs to our own head. During a toxic experience, you may have admired in the other person a strength, security, or charm that in reality were merely distorted reflections of your own unrecognized brilliant potential. The narcissist's manipulative behavior used this dynamic to make you believe you needed them to feel complete, creating a dependency based on a carefully constructed mirage. The healing phase begins the moment you gather these golden projections, clearly realizing that all the magnificence you saw in the relationship was, in fact, your own light. The closure of this cycle brings the necessary disillusionment for you to see the other person in their true proportion, an emotionally immature individual, while you reclaim all your inner treasures. If you are determined to reclaim all your light and build a life based on self-respect and true peace, subscribe to the channel right now. By joining our community, you will have access to valuable guidance and a safe space to nurture your consciousness, shielding your mind against any future manipulation. Your registration is a commitment to your own growth and the guarantee that your energy will only be invested in what brings expansion. The gathering of this psychic energy causes your vitality to return, almost miraculously, as the leak that drained your energy has been definitively sealed by your new consciousness. You begin to invest your time, your intellect, and your passion in building your own projects, discovering talents and abilities that had been obscured by exhausting relationships. The woman who stops projecting her value externally becomes a powerful magnetic field, capable of attracting opportunities and relationships that resonate with her new frequency of integrity and wisdom. The recovery of the light is a movement of personal justice, where you absolve yourself of guilt for having believed and celebrate the courage you had to finally open your eyes. Her feminine energy flourishes in autonomy, proving that completeness has always been within her heart, and that the external search was merely a necessary detour towards profound self-knowledge. By integrating this light that is rightfully yours, the power dynamic that previously oppressed you completely loses its strength, transforming the former manipulator into a distant and irrelevant figure. The brilliance you emanate no longer serves to illuminate the stage of those who don't know how to applaud your existence. It serves exclusively to warm your own life and guide your steps. Jung called this process an encounter with the self, the divine center of the personality that is not shaken by the fluctuations of others' egos and remains intact regardless of circumstances. You begin to walk with a different posture, with relaxed shoulders and head held high, reflecting the tranquility of someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. The reclaimed feminine energy is the matrix force of reconstruction, a spring of crystalline waters that washes away old sorrows and fertilizes the soil for a new and prosperous beginning. Accepting your own greatness may seem daunting at first, as we have been culturally taught to dim our light so as not to disturb those who live comfortably in their own shadows. However, the woman who has experienced a pattern of control knows that her survival and sanity depend directly on refusing to shrink back into limited spaces. Reclaiming the light is an act of silent rebellion and radical self-love, where you declare your emotional independence and establish your own rules for coexistence with the universe. The brilliance of your integrated feminine energy is the clearest sign that healing has occurred, radiating a peace that cannot be bought and a firmness that cannot be bent. There's an invisible pact many women sign in an attempt to maintain peace in draining relationships, the contract of compliance, where harmony is bought at the cost of silence itself. The experience with a person lacking empathy exposes the tragic flaw in this pact, showing that their willingness to constantly give in will never result in reciprocity, but rather in more demands and breaches of respect. Their feminine energy has been conditioned to be the buffer for others' problems, absorbing the impact of bad moods and manipulations to try and salvage a situation that was already structurally compromised. The awakening is the moment you tear up this abusive contract, deciding that your well-being will no longer be the bargaining chip for the comfort of someone who doesn't value your presence. The end of compliance is the birth of a firm stance, where no becomes a complete and non-negotiable statement, protecting your time, your mind, and your essence. Jungian psychology reminds us that a healthy feminine is not constituted solely by the archetype of the nurturing mother, but also by the warrior force that fiercely protects its territory and its offspring. By abandoning the role of the all-accepting woman, you integrate this warrior facet of your psyche, establishing such clear and defined boundaries that any attempt to cross them becomes immediately obvious. The manipulator, accustomed to finding the doors of your patience open, encounters an insurmountable barrier of self-respect that he lacks the emotional or intellectual tools to overcome. This change in posture does not require rudeness or aggression. It manifests itself through a sharp clarity and a polite indifference that completely removes the stage from the narcissistic theater. Your feminine energy concentrates, becoming a solid block of dignity that naturally repels any dynamic that attempts to diminish your invaluable worth. Giving up complacency brings immeasurable relief to the nervous system, which can finally leave its state of hypervigilance and rest assured that you are your own protector. The guilt that used to arise whenever you prioritized your needs dissolves, being replaced by a serene pride in having the courage to defend yourself and choose yourself above all else. You come to understand that true kindness does not exclude firmness, and that loving your neighbor should never mean tolerating behaviors that undermine your emotional health or psychological integrity. The end of this contract is a declaration of freedom that echoes in all areas of your life, improving the quality of your friendships, your work, and your relationship with the mirror. The woman who is no longer complacent with disrespect becomes the author of her own story, writing chapters where peace and joy are the central and non-negotiable themes. The process of abandoning the need to please everyone is, in fact, a return to your most authentic nature, where your emotions and opinions are validated first and foremost by yourself. The focus shifts radically. Instead of worrying about what others will think of your decision, you begin to care about the impact that decision will have on your own inner harmony. This centralization of personal power frustrates any attempt at external control because the emotionally immature person loses access to their decision-making system and their feelings. Your feminine energy, previously scattered in an attempt to save everyone, now flows coherently and directly towards the manifestation of your deepest and truest purposes and desires. The end of complacency is the definitive proof that maturity has occurred and that your inner wisdom has taken the unquestionable direction of your life. By establishing this new base of operations, you inspire others around you to also raise their relationship standards and seek the same level of awareness and respect. Your life becomes a living testament that it is perfectly possible to weather the storm and build a peaceful reality based on healthy boundaries and a revolutionary and transformative self-love. The contract of complacency has been replaced by an unbreakable commitment to your truth, sealing a phase where your feminine energy reigns supreme, protected and incredibly magnetic. The strength of a woman who knows what she wants and, above all, what she no longer accepts, is one of the most beautiful and powerful expressions of evolving human nature. One of the most important steps in healing after the strain of a toxic relationship is encountering one's own shadow, a fundamental concept Carl Jung used to describe the hidden parts of the psyche. Society often conditions women to repress any trace of assertiveness or firmness, relegating these vital characteristics to the dark side of the unconscious, as if they were flaws that should be covered up. However, survival and reconstruction after emotional manipulation require you to descend into these depths and reclaim your natural capacity for defense, your righteous indignation, and your protective instinct. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean becoming a bad person. It means becoming a whole person, capable of using the power of no to preserve the light and peace of your inner space. By embracing this part of yourself, you deactivate the vulnerability that the narcissist exploited and build an invisible and absolutely impenetrable energetic wall. When you accept your shadow, the need to always act like the nice guy and perfectly understanding person disappears, giving way to a raw and wonderfully liberating authenticity. You allow your intuition to sniff out lack of empathy and lies, reacting to these threats with the precision of a healthy immune system that attacks the virus before it spreads. The person trying to impose a pattern of control immediately notices this change. They realize that the old docility has been replaced by a grounded presence that doesn't smile at their cruel jokes or validate their illusions. Integrating your shadow is your most natural and sophisticated defense, as it acts from a place of calm wisdom without needing to despair or repeatedly justify your choices. The balance between the light of your empathy and the strength of your shadow creates an indomitable feminine energy that flows gracefully, but is perfectly capable of overwhelming anyone who tries to dam its course. The fear of confrontation, which previously paralyzed her and held her hostage to the situation, transforms into an observant tranquility, where she understands that the conflict generated by boundaries is merely the other person fighting against their own loss of power. She no longer internalizes the accusations or distortions of reality created by the emotionally immature person, because her integrated shadow gives her an unwavering clarity about who she really is and what she represents. This internal alignment brings a gigantic saving of energy, because the effort that was previously spent trying to defend or explain herself is now used to create, live, and prosper in all areas of life. The woman who knows her own shadow does not fear the darkness of others. She navigates human complexities with the confidence of one who carries her own torch and sword. Her feminine energy reaches the peak of maturity, blending the sweetness of affection with the necessary rigidity to maintain her dignity intact in the face of any adversity. Jung taught that individuation requires recognizing all our facets, and by doing so, you definitively end the cycle of repetition where you attracted devaluing dynamics into your life. The integrated shadow acts as a rigorous filter, naturally distancing yourself from people and situations that vibrate at the frequency of drama, gossip, and emotional exhaustion, preserving your sanity. You begin to appreciate your own complexity, celebrating the strong woman who survived the pressure and who used the stones thrown at her to pave the road of her own continuous evolution. This new posture reverberates in the environment around you, imposing a silent respect that precedes your words and establishes the rules of how you wish to be treated from now on. Healing is the wonderful process of becoming the official guardian of your own soul. The integration of the shadow seals the final phase of natural defense, ensuring that your heart remains open only to connections that offer reciprocity, honesty, and genuine, secure affection. When feminine energy embraces its totality, it ceases to be an open field for invaders and becomes a closed garden, whose keys are given only to those who prove worthy of trust and care. You become living proof that transformation after a painful experience is not merely a consolation, but a structural revolution that elevates the human being to extraordinary levels of consciousness and power. The past has ceased to be a heavy anchor and has become a compass of infinite wisdom that guides your new and wonderful journey of unwavering peace. Feminine energy carries within it the ancestral gift of intuition, a form of direct and profound knowledge that often transcends linear logic and perceives the nuances of human intentions. During periods of emotional manipulation, this inner compass was systematically discredited by gaslighting, a tactic specifically designed to make you doubt your own sanity and perception of reality. Rebuilding your strength involves the careful rehabilitation of this inner voice, uniting intuitive wisdom with rational clarity to form an infallible system of evaluation and protection against deception. When intuition points to discomfort and reason confirms the other person's contradictory attitudes, you act quickly, without lingering on unfounded justifications or hopes for miraculous changes. The balance between these two forces returns to you the authorship of your decisions, ensuring that your empathy is never again used against your own emotional and psychological integrity. I want to know about your experience. What was the first sign of your intuition that you ignored in the past, but that you would never overlook today? Leave your response in the comments, because by sharing your experience, you not only strengthen your own confidence in that inner voice, but you also help illuminate the path for others who are on the same journey. Your reflection is a powerful tool to consolidate learning and transform the echoes of the toxic experience into a practical manual for survival and collective wisdom. The comments section is our meeting point to celebrate the newfound clarity and the regaining of control over our own lives and daily choices. Jung deeply explored the relationship between the feminine and masculine aspects of the psyche, the anima and the animus, teaching that full development occurs when these energies collaborate in perfect harmony. Your intuition, feminine, detects dissonance in the environment, while your reason and capacity for action, masculine, erect the necessary barriers and execute the distancing without hesitation or paralyzing guilt. This teamwork within your own mind eliminates the mental confusion that the draining relationship had created, replacing chaos with a serene and wonderfully functional inner order. You stop trying to rationally explain the irrational and begin to trust that your body and spirit know exactly when an environment or a person is unsafe. The feminine energy, previously fragmented by doubt, becomes cohesive, sharp, and ready to support choices that prioritize your health and peace of mind above any empty promise. Refining this balance makes you an astute reader of behaviors and vibrations, immunizing you against the common traps set by people lacking empathy and responsibility. Superficial charm and calculated words no longer have the power to obscure concrete actions and the lack of consistency that always end up revealing themselves with time and careful observation. You begin to grant the benefit of the doubt only to those who demonstrate through consistent actions that they are worthy of your trust and emotional investment. This posture is not one of closing yourself off from the world, but of a qualified openness where the windows of your soul remain open only to the light, while the doors are locked against storms. The union between intuition and reason is the invisible shield that guarantees the maintenance of your new state of consciousness. Operating from this center of balance, your life gains a fluidity and security that reflect the peak of emotional maturity and the overcoming of past patterns of control. You understand that wisdom does not reside in ignoring intuition in favor of cold rationality, nor in getting lost in a sea of emotions without the support of mental clarity and objective facts. Your feminine energy now expresses itself as a wise and balanced force, which does not fear life's challenges because it knows it possesses the necessary inner resources to decipher any enigma and overcome any adversity. The turning point has occurred. The woman who once doubted herself is now the absolute mistress of her own perception and the sovereign architect of her brilliant reality. Analytical psychology uses the metaphor of alchemy to describe the extraordinary process the soul undergoes in transforming its most painful and dark experiences into the gold of higher consciousness. The experience of a draining relationship and a controlling pattern acts like the alchemist's gentle fire, an element that, while causing initial suffering, has the capacity to purify and distill the true essence of the human being. The woman who experiences abuse is not defined by the scars she carries, but by the mastery with which she uses these marks to build an unshakable foundation of wisdom and a profound understanding of life. The impact of the toxic experience is transmuted into a driving force that compels her to expand her horizons, question her old beliefs, and raise her standards of existence to an unprecedented level. Pain, when processed with courage and self-observation, ceases to be a paralyzing burden and becomes the essential fuel for rebirth and the definitive liberation from the shackles of the past. The alchemical process requires you to confront residual feelings without running from them, allowing sadness and disappointment to flow through you until the murky water becomes crystal clear and drinkable again. You understand that the behavior of the emotionally immature person relates solely to their fractures and voids, and that in no way do these attitudes determine your personal worth or your capacity to be loved. This intellectual and emotional dissociation is the moment when lead begins to turn to gold, as you shift your focus from trying to understand the mind of another and place it entirely on the expansion of your own mind. Your feminine energy absorbs the brutal learning and refines it into an even more mature empathy, which embraces the pain of the world but categorically refuses to harbor the toxicity of others under its roof. The profound wisdom that emerges from this stage is the crown you place upon your own head, a symbol of victory over illusion and the consecration of your inner truth. The woman who performs this alchemy begins to observe human dynamics with compassionate detachment, understanding the games of the ego without ever allowing herself to enter the game board to play a match that was already lost. She doesn't carry the weight of resentment or the need for retaliation, for she knows that the greatest proof of her evolution is the absolute peace that resides where before there was anxiety and confusion caused by manipulation. Her heart, purified by the fire of overcoming, becomes a sacred and fertile space, where only the seeds of respect, joy, and reciprocity are allowed to germinate and bear lasting fruit. The emotional maturity achieved through this process is reflected in her ability to smile at the future, knowing that the tools acquired in the storm are guarantees of sunny and safe days. The alchemy has transformed her former vulnerability into the silent strength that now characterizes her remarkable presence in the world. Jung teaches us that we cannot become enlightened merely by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, and that is exactly what you did by traversing the valley of toxic experience with resilience. You faced the most arid parts of human nature, and instead of becoming arid yourself, you chose to become an oasis of clarity, boundaries, and a revolutionary and unbreakable self-love. The feminine energy, nourished by this new consciousness, reveals itself as an ancestral force that connects you with all the women who came before you, also transformed their falls into leaps of expansion. The gold of your soul now shines with an intensity that blinds the falsehood and attracts the truth, creating a natural protective field around your life, your projects, and your affections. The alchemy is complete when you look in the mirror and recognize a whole, profound woman, absolutely in control of her own story and her glorious destiny. This acquired wisdom is not lost. It accumulates and refines itself, serving as your main advisor in all future romantic, professional, and personal choices you will make from now on. Your life becomes an eloquent testament to the fact that reconstruction is possible and that peace, after chaos, has an infinitely sweeter and more valued taste for those who have known its absence. You are living proof of the regenerative capacity of the human psyche, an example that the spirit, when aligned with truth and self-care, cannot be contained by any pattern of control. Celebrate the alchemy of your pain, for it is the golden key that opened the door of your prison and led you to the vastness of freedom, awareness, and an incredibly full and meaningful life. True feminine energy doesn't base its power on submission or the relentless pursuit of external approval, but on the integrity and fullness of someone who deeply knows their own invaluable worth. When you end the cycle of abuse and focus on your inner reconstruction, a drastic vibrational shift occurs that completely alters how you present yourself and interact with the universe around you. The neediness and fear of rejection, which previously created openings for emotionally immature people to enter, are replaced by radiant self-sufficiency and genuine contentment with your own company and choices. This new state of being generates a natural and powerful magnetism, attracting situations, opportunities, and relationships that are in perfect resonance with your new frequency of self-respect and clarity. A woman who values herself doesn't need to make an effort to prove her importance. Her mere presence occupies the space sovereignly and imposes without words the level of treatment she accepts. Share with me in the comments, how has your standard for new relationships changed after you regained your self-worth and peace of mind? The act of verbalizing and sharing your new boundaries is a powerful way to solidify this change in your identity and inspire others to not accept less than they deserve. Sharing experiences creates a network of mutual support, where each story of overcoming and redefining boundaries serves as a reminder that true love always begins from within. Your testimony could be the key that helps someone turn the page in their own life and take the first step towards rebuilding and reclaiming their own dignity and joy of living. This woman's magnetism no longer attracts the narcissist's gaze seeking easy fixes, because his toxic structure is immediately repelled by the solidity and transparency of the barriers she has erected. The manipulator seeks doubt, instability, and the desire to please, but encounters a rock of conviction and a polished indifference that provide him with no foothold to initiate his mental games. This natural repulsion is clear evidence that your protection system is working perfectly, filtering energies and allowing passage only to those who have the capacity to add, not subtract. You become a pole of attraction for mature individuals who value the depth of connections and who are not intimidated by the silent and resolute strength emanating from your healed feminine essence. Your social and emotional life transforms into a faithful reflection of your inner peace, where mutual respect and sincere admiration are the basis of any interaction or commitment you decide to undertake. Self-worth is also reflected in how you care for your body, mind, and personal projects, investing your time in what brings growth and true satisfaction to your soul. You stop living according to the needs of a problematic partner and begin to cultivate your own talents and passions, becoming the undisputed and passionate protagonist of your own life journey. This dedication to yourself is the source of your charm, because there is nothing more attractive than a person who is deeply connected to their purpose and who lives in alignment with their truth. Feminine energy, when not being drained by emotional manipulation, flourishes in creativity and a beauty that transcends aesthetics, revealing the luminosity of a spirit that has rediscovered and liberated itself. Your magnetism is the signature of your healing, proof that self-love is the most attractive and healing force that exists in the entire human universe. By positioning yourself in this way, you inspire those around you to rise to your level, not accepting concessions that compromise the harmony and balance you have fought so hard to achieve. Your journey of self-discovery and empowerment serves as a testament to the fact that overcoming challenges not only restores life, but elevates it to previously unthinkable dimensions of happiness and fulfillment. The magnetism of a woman who values herself is the ultimate consecration of her heroic journey, where the past becomes merely fertilizer for the flourishing of her most beautiful, exuberant, and well-cared-for garden. You attract the best of the world simply because you refuse to be less than your best self, experiencing the magic of reciprocity and fullness in every small detail of your daily life. In the journey of rebuilding the self after the strain of a toxic relationship, learning to differentiate between loneliness and solitude is a watershed moment that exponentially accelerates the process of psychic healing. Loneliness is characterized by a feeling of lack, a painful void that the person desperately tries to fill with external presence, often accepting company that does not add value to their life. Solitude, a concept widely valued in the pursuit of individuation, is the conscious choice to be alone in order to reconnect with one's own essence, finding pleasure, peace, and a profound meaning in one's own company. It's in the silence of solitude that a woman hears the voice of her intuition again, processes the pains of the past without interference, and recalibrates her feminine energy for the next stage of her life. This sacred space functions as a womb of regeneration, where the fractures caused by the breach of respect are healed with the mortar of self-love and tranquil reflection, free from any kind of external judgment. An emotionally immature and manipulative person is terrified of silence and their own company, because the absence of external stimuli forces them to confront their own emptiness and lack of inner substance. You, on the other hand, discover that solitude is your greatest superpower and the perfect refuge, where you can nurture your inner child with the attention, care, and affection that the other person was unable to provide. In this protected environment, you don't need to act. You don't need to defend yourself from surprise attacks, and you don't need to modulate your personality to avoid an explosion of fury or the coldness of someone who doesn't know how to love. The silent bed, the book on the weekend, the solitary walk, all of this transforms into rituals of consecration of your freedom and the regaining of control over your peace of mind. Solitude strengthens your feminine energy, showing that you are a complete and self-sufficient being, perfectly capable of generating your own joy and fulfilling your emotional needs with mastery and grace. This ability to be at peace with oneself is the ultimate barrier against re-entering the cycle of abuse, because those who are not afraid of being alone will never accept crumbs of attention or conditional affection. You begin to see that someone's company should be a wonderful complement to a life that is already rich and satisfying in itself, and not the sole foundation upon which your happiness is precariously built. The time invested in solitude clears your mental field of the fog of confusion created by the narcissist, allowing your intelligence and discernment to operate at maximum capacity and efficiency. Your home, your time, and your energy become inviolable sanctuaries, and you learn to appreciate the lightness of not having to carry the emotional weight of someone who refuses to take responsibility. Regeneration through solitude is proof that your strength does not come from the external, but from the unbreakable connection you have established with your own soul and your fundamental values. The woman who masters the art of solitude becomes a mystery and a challenge to those who seek easy victims for their games of control and draining of psychic and emotional energy. They realize there is no neediness to be exploited, no fear of abandonment to be manipulated, and no hopelessness to be used as a bargaining chip for abusive or disrespectful behavior. You are anchored in your own being, flowing with life and appreciating the small victories of everyday life with a gratitude that shields your heart against the negativity and superficiality of others. Regenerated feminine energy is not aggressive. It is serene, centered, and possesses a density of presence that imposes clear boundaries without the need to raise your voice or engage in unnecessary conflicts. Solitude has given you back the key to your kingdom, and now you govern your thoughts and emotions with the firmness and sweetness of a true leader of yourself. The period of voluntary and reflective isolation is, in fact, the preparatory stage for your triumphant return to the world, but this time with your own rules and a panoramic view of human nature. You will emerge from this process not as a fearful survivor, but as a renewed, radiant woman, ready to enjoy the good things in life, knowing exactly what you deserve and what should be avoided at all costs. Healing solitude is the bridge that connects the painful past to the bright future, a path built with the wisdom of experience and the light of awakened and vigilant consciousness. Celebrate moments of quietude, for it is through them that your feminine energy replenishes itself and prepares to shine with an intensity that no passing cloud will be able to dim or extinguish. According to Carl Jung's view, libido is not limited to sexual desire, but represents life energy in its totality, the vital force that drives creativity, passion, and enthusiasm for existence. The pattern of control imposed by toxic experiences acted as a suffocating dam, blocking the flow of this vital energy and generating the apathy, sadness, and meaninglessness that characterized the dark days of the past. Authentic healing and maturation result in the final rupture of this artificial dam, allowing the river of your libido to flow freely again, fertilizing all areas of your life with new ideas and projects. You begin to notice the return of an easy smile, a sudden desire to dance, to paint, to study, or simply to appreciate the beauty of a late afternoon without the weight of unfounded worries. This awakening of genuine joy is undeniable evidence that the emotional winter has ended and that the spring of your soul is blossoming with vibrant colors and unprecedented fragrances on your journey. To continue fueling this creative force and keep your mind shielded, protected, and constantly evolving, I invite you to subscribe to the channel now and activate notifications. Join this community that has been helping countless people. Your consistent engagement with our content guarantees that you won't miss any essential tools for maintaining your peace and continuously strengthening your wonderful feminine energy and consciousness. By being part of this healing egregore, you connect to an inexhaustible source of wisdom and support, building an impenetrable shield against any manipulation attempts that may arise. Resuming creativity is the most powerful antidote to the memories of a draining relationship because the act of creating focuses you on the present and the future, emptying the past of its power to cause pain or stagnation. You discover that your feminine energy is the architect of a new world, using your imagination to build professional realities, hobbies, and social connections that reflect your deepest and truest essence. Creative work, whatever it may be, becomes a channel of expression for your intuition and the wisdom accumulated during this period of overcoming, transforming your experiences into works of art, successful businesses, or simply a happier home. The contrast between the paralysis of controlled time and the fluidity of freedom highlights how far you've come and how naturally programmed your spirit is to thrive, despite any challenge. Cured creativity is the visible celebration of your resilience, proving that the talent and brilliance within you are your own, inalienable and absolutely indestructible. This return to an active and passionate life definitively dispels the image of the emotionally immature person, because the light of your sincere joy is the most inhospitable and uncomfortable environment for those who operate on the frequency of envy and lies. The narcissist, who tried to extinguish your brilliance so that their darkness would not be exposed, perceives from afar that their attempt failed miserably and that your light now shines with a much greater and purer intensity. Your ability to smile and be enchanted by life is irrefutable proof that the roots of your soul are deeper than any emotional poison they tried to pour upon your fertile and sacred ground. Feminine energy, when free and unimpeded, is a force of nature that cannot be caged, flowing with a grace that attracts success, health, and love in its truest, most respectful, and edifying form possible. You are proof that life always finds a path of renewal, and that self-love is the driving force for any great human and spiritual achievement. By embracing this new, vibrant phase, you become an inspiration to your inner circle, demonstrating that there are no limits to the human capacity to rebuild and find new purpose after the storm. Your story of transformation ceases to be a tale of pain and becomes a chronicle of victory, a narrative of a heroine who rescued her own treasures and multiplied them in the sunlight for all to see. Celebrate the return of your creativity and passion, nurturing these flames daily with self-care, gratitude, and the unwavering commitment to never allow anyone to dare try to extinguish your light again. The joy of living is your new reality, and the silent strength you have developed guarantees that this state of grace and expansion will remain the permanent and definitive pattern of your wonderfully rebuilt existence. The journey after a toxic experience reaches its peak in the Jungian concept of individuation, the moment when you consolidate yourself as a unique, whole, indivisible human being, fully aware of your own value and power. You have overcome denial, the pain of discovery, the rigorous establishment of boundaries, and the integration of the shadow, culminating in the definitive consecration of your sovereignty over your emotional, mental, and spiritual realm. The woman who reaches this stage is not merely a survivor of a grueling event. She is the wise ruler of her own life, someone who firmly holds the scepter of her decisions and does not relinquish it to anyone. The feminine energy, once fragmented by the doubts instilled by gaslighting, now forms a cohesive and radiant core of certainty and inner peace, where the opinions of others have no power to alter the stability of your being. You have achieved true freedom, the kind that is born from within and does not depend on perfect circumstances, but on the absolute conviction that you possess the keys to managing your own peace and happiness. At this stage of awareness, you look back and observe the path you've traveled, not with eyes of resentment or bitterness, but with the elevated perspective of someone who understands the big picture and the purpose of personal evolution. The figure of the narcissist loses its status as a powerful villain and is reduced to a mere pedagogical event in your biography, an uncomfortable catalyst that accelerated your process of awakening to reality and self-respect. You understand that your strength was not created by their control, but that the pressure only revealed the diamond that already existed, latent in the depths of your soul, waiting for the right opportunity to reveal itself to the world in all its splendor. The wisdom acquired shields your future, ensuring that your internal radar instantly identifies any new attempt at manipulation, allowing you to walk away with the elegance of someone who no longer needs to fight to prove they are right. Emotional sovereignty is the most valuable treasure of your reconstruction, a prize that compensates for all the tears shed and seals your passage to a new level of existence and healthy, real relationships. The legacy of your transformation is the undeniable peace that now inhabits your routine, a tranquility reflected in the way you breathe, walk, and relate to the universe of infinite possibilities that has opened before you. Your life has become a practical testament to the fact that it is possible to end a cycle of disrespect and inaugurate an era of love, prosperity, and harmony, where your voice is the law that governs your personal space and your emotional choices. Those who have the privilege of sharing this new phase with you find a mature, interesting, and confident woman whose presence is a safe haven, not a battlefield filled with uncertainties, fears, and unrealistic demands. The sovereign feminine energy is magnanimous. It offers affection without losing its form and supports others without ever negating itself, maintaining the perfect balance between the sweetness of the heart and the strength of the mind, as Carl Jung envisioned in the individuated being. The triumph of their conscience is proof that light always finds a way to pierce through the darkest crack and illuminate the entirety of being, restoring dignity to those who dared to seek the truth at any cost. The consecration of your freedom definitively closes the chapter of fear and opens the book of expansion, where you are the sole author of the pages to come, dictating the rhythm, the characters, and the setting of your extraordinary journey. You have learned to be your own refuge and your own inspiration, demonstrating that human resilience is one of the most moving and powerful wonders on the face of the earth, capable of converting adversity into springboards to success. Your feminine energy is now shielded by truth, nourished by intuition, and protected by reason, forming the trinity of mental health and spiritual protection that will guide you to your last days with honor and brilliance. Celebrate every small and large step that has brought you here, for you have accomplished a great feat that deserves to be recognized and applauded, especially by your own heart, which never stopped beating for hope and justice. The world is ready to receive the most powerful, healed, and conscious version of yourself you have ever inhabited, and your light is absolutely necessary to inspire others to also seek the path of emancipation and unconditional self-love. Walk with the absolute certainty that you have conquered the highest mountain, and that the view from the top reveals an infinite clear horizon full of peace, true love, and achievements that are your undeniable birthright. You have turned the page, rebuilt your inner empire, and now live the purest essence of your silent and sovereign strength, dictating the supreme rule of your new world. Here, respect is the only language spoken and peace is the only currency accepted.